Let's just dive right in. If you've been anywhere near a startup pitch, or really just the internet for the past couple of years, you've heard two words over and over: AI powered. It's everywhere. It's like the magic key to getting funding.
It is. It's absolutely unavoidable. But, we really need to take a step back here because what the sources we've been looking at are telling us, especially the work by AI strategist J.D. Parashar, is that there's an uncomfortable truth. Not every company with AI in its deck is a real structurally sound business. A lot of them are what he calls fragile experiments disguised as companies.
And that's exactly what this deep dive is about. We are going to push past the flashy demos and all the hype. We're focusing on the biggest risk in AI today, which, it's not the tech failing, it's the business model just being an illusion.
Yes, exactly. The goal here is to find the structural soundness that, separates the real winners from the experiments that are just going to vanish the next time an API gets an update.
Oh.
So we're diving into the 10 key red flags Parashar identified. Think of it as a toolkit for you to vet whether an AI product is built on rock or just a house of cards. Let's jump straight to the most dangerous one.
The ultimate glass jaw.
Huh.
Red flag number one. The business exists only because an API exists. This means your entire company, everything, is hanging by a thread on someone else's pricing, their stability, their rules.
It is the absolute dividing line. It's the difference between owning a real company and just, putting a pretty wrapper on someone else's code. If the main thing you give your user, the core value, is just a single API call, maybe for generating text or analyzing a picture, the risk is, frankly, existential.
And the triggers for collapse are happening right now. We see it in the news. Imagine an API provider just jacks up their prices. Suddenly, your already thin profit margin is just gone overnight. Or they slap on rate limits and your growth just stops dead.
And it's not just about the money, which is fascinating. What if a competitor, release a model that's just 10% better or 20% faster? Your customers have zero reason to stay. They can just jump ship instantly. You haven't built a defensible moat. You're just renting your existence.
But wait, a lot of successful companies do start out by using APIs. So how does a founder avoid that trap? What's the difference between a smart wrapper and just one of these fragile experiments?
That is the critical question. The fragile experiment stops at being a wrapper. The real business uses that wrapper as a runway to build something durable. A real AI business has to own at least one thing: unique data, maybe deep integration into a specific workflow distribution, or maybe it's memory that personalizes the service, or domain-specific automation. Proprietary feedback loops are another huge one. Without owning at least one of those, your moat is just imaginary.
I really like that idea. Transitioning from renting an advantage to actually owning a structural one. And that connects perfectly to the next big mistake, not just renting the technology, but trying to sell the technology itself, which is red flag number 4. AI is the only selling point.
Absolutely. This is when the founder's pitch is all about the tech stack instead of the customer's outcome. They lead with things like, we use large language models, or we deploy multi-modal agents. That's just a log of ingredients. It's not the meal the customer's actually paying for.
And nobody pays for ingredients, right? They pay for the finished meal.
Precisely. For anyone listening and trying to evaluate these companies, just remember this: good AI should be invisible. The outcomes, on the other hand, should be incredibly visible. Real businesses sell speed, or massive cost savings, or better accuracy. They sell automation that lets you reduce headcount. If you're selling the tech, you're competing with the giants who built it. And that's a fight you are just not going to win.
That makes perfect sense. If your whole pitch is, we use GPT-4, you are one policy change away from being totally irrelevant. Okay, let's shift from the product's foundation to the company's bank account. Because great tech with no money is, well, it's a hobby. Red flag number 2, no clear answer to who pays and why.
This is such a classic startup mistake, but it's on steroids in the AI world. The tools are often so cool, so novel that they get a ton of users really fast. But turning those users into actual revenue, that's the hard part.
Yeah, we've all heard those vague statements from founders that just scream fragility. What are the phrases we should listen for?
It's the evasions. It's the, oh, we'll monetize later, or once we get to scale, the revenue will just follow. Or my personal favorite, everyone needs this. These aren't strategies. They're just, acts of faith that completely ignore the brutal reality of business.
So how do you tell the difference between a company that's just experimenting with its pricing model versus one that's just totally lost?
A strong business can answer 5 very specific questions. Who exactly pays for this? How often do they pay? Why won't they cancel when their own budgets get tight? What specific expensive pain are you solving? And is your price just a fraction of what they're already spending to deal with that pain? If that logic isn't there, the business is fragile. You have to be solving a gaping wound, not a paper cut.
And if the revenue logic is fuzzy, the next problem is absolutely lethal. Red flag number 3. Unit economics don't improve with scale. We're so used to traditional saws, right, where the more users you get, the wider your margins become. But with AI, you can actually build a business that gets weaker the more popular it is.
Exactly, because the cost of inference is not zero. That's a huge shift from old school software. Every single time a user clicks, generate, or analyze, you're paying for compute. So you have to be watching for the negative signals.
Can you give us a common example of one of those signals?
The most obvious is when your costs just grow in a straight line with your users, your margins never improve. Or you see these massive complex models being used for really low-value tasks. Running a huge model just to summarize a Slack thread. If you haven't built cost optimization in from day one, you're building a financial time bomb that just gets bigger with every new user.
So if more users just means more losses, the model is broken. What does a successful cost structure look like then?
A sound AI business has to show a clear path where its output grows way, way faster than its costs. Exponentially faster. It's not about making one employee 10% faster. It's about enabling one employee to do the work of 10. That means you have to optimize your models, you have to cache results, use cheaper fallbacks. You only spend the big money on the really high-value tasks.
Okay, so the product has to be financially sound. Let's move from the back-end economics to the user experience, because this is where so many of these products quietly die. Red flag number 5. I love this one. The product adds steps instead of removing them. It's a silent killer.
It really is. The entire promise of AI is to remove complexity, to give the user leverage. If your tool actually adds to their mental workload, it's failing at its core mission. You see this all the time. The user has to write these crazy long prompts, or they're constantly tweaking settings, or they have to double-check everything the AI spits out.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's like buying a self-cleaning robot vacuum that makes you manually tell it what kind of dirt you have before it starts. At that point, why even bother?
Exactly. When the friction goes up, adoption just grounds to a halt. It doesn't matter how smart the algorithm is. A good AI tool has to collapse a workflow. It should remove decisions, require less thinking, and automate the boring stuff. If I spend 5 minutes cleaning up the AI's work, I might as well have just spent 10 minutes doing it myself from the start.
Which leads us right into red flag number 7. The business depends on users teaching the AI everything. When your AI needs constant babysitting, you're basically treating your customers like unpaid data labelers.
And that creates huge problems for the business. Your onboarding is terrible because the user has to do all this work up front just to get any value, and your retention is weak because they never reach a stable, useful state. People signed up for a solution, not a side job as an AI trainer.
But doesn't AI need feedback to get better? I mean, where's the balance between training it and just getting immediate value?
Strong AI businesses learn fast and stabilize fast. They might use internal data loops or synthetic data to mature. They adapt automatically as more people use them. If the product just stays in this permanent experimental mode, always asking the user to refine and teach it, adoption is going to crater. The product's debt never gets paid down.
Let's pivot to execution, because even with a good product and a revenue model, you can still fail if you don't have internal clarity. Red flag number 6. The founder can't explain the system without buzzwords. This is such a great tell. It signals fragility right under the surface.
Oh, absolutely. When a founder just leans on jargon transformer architecture, orchestration layers, retrieval augmented generation, and they can't switch to plain English to explain how it actually works, you should be very, very skeptical. Buzzwords are often just a mask for a lack of clear architectural thinking.
So what are the non-buzzword specifics? What should a smart investor or a customer be asking to understand the system?
You need to understand the data architecture. It's the system's nervous system, so the founder needs to explain. How does data flow in and out? Where does the inference actually happen? Where is user memory stored? And crucially, how are costs controlled, and what happens when the system fails? Clarity on execution will always beat a deck full of buzzwords. If they can't explain their failure plan, they haven't designed it right.
And if the internal execution is clear, the external strategy has to be just as solid. Which brings us to red flag number 8. No distribution strategy beyond "we went viral once." That initial hype, it's a sugar rush. It's not a meal.
It's an emote, that's for sure. A viral tweet, a few thousand stars on GitHub. It's out of business. What people miss is that AI startups usually don't die from bad tech. They die from these invisible weaknesses in distribution after the hype fades.
What are the warning signs there? What should we be looking for?
You're looking for what's missing. Is there a content engine? A partnership strategy to get embedded in other tools? Is there a community? Is there any organic way for people to discover it? If the only plan is expensive ads or just waiting for the next viral moment, that business is going to shrink as fast as it grew.
Which makes that initial presentation even more fraught with danger. Red flag number 9. The demo versus reality gap is too wide. We've all seen it. The demo looks like actual magic.
But then you get your hands on the real product, and the
Yeah.
difference is it's jarring. The demo is magic because it was perfectly curated. The live product is clunky, the results are inconsistent, and any edge case just breaks the whole thing. It's a company being carried by a good presentation, not by good engineering.
And the insight there is so clear. Demos get you attention, but reliability is what actually builds a business. If users feel like it's always in beta, they'll never trust it for important work.
Never.
Hmm.
Which brings us to the final red flag, number 10, and I think it really wraps everything up. The roadmap is pure features, not systems.
This is about confusing adding more complexity with actually building stability, isn't it?
Exactly. You look at the roadmap and all you see is adding more stuff. Add more agents, integrate more models, add more integrations. All you're doing there is stacking risk. Features add capability, sure, but they also add new ways for things to break.
So what should a strong, structurally sound roadmap focus on instead?
It has to focus on reducing risk and building stability. So a strong roadmap prioritizes systems. Things like evaluation systems to measure quality, memory management, cost controls to fix flag 3 performance monitoring, fallback systems for when things fail, and user behavior loops that make the core product better. Features stack risk, systems reduce it.
That is a fantastic synthesis. So the structurally sound AI businesses we're looking for, they have deep workflow integration, clear revenue logic, and unit economics that actually improve with scale. They have real distribution, a compounding advantage, and most importantly, they have very little dependency risk. The sources are clear. Structure always beats hype.
And if you connect that last point, flag 10, back to that need for internal clarity we talked about, it's all about focusing on stabilizing the system, not just adding shiny features. It's a total shift in mindset, from how it looks on the outside to how resilient it is on the inside.
So to leave you with a final thought on this, something to take into your next evaluation. Given that stability comes from system-level thinking, what is the one single metric a founder should be tracking internally? Not for investors, not for users, but for their own private understanding of their system's hidden fragility.
Is it maybe the percentage of calls that had to fail over to a more expensive model because the cheap one couldn't handle it? Or is it the average time the system waits before it has to bring in a human to fix a mistake? The answer is in finding where the biggest hidden risk is, and then measuring that one thing relentlessly. That single number will tell you so much more about the health of the business than any polished demo ever could.